Hello everybody, my name is Ronnie Yucaytano from BSIT2G and I am discussing the Expressionism. First, what is Expressionism? Expressionism, artistic style in which the artist seeks to depict not objective reality, but rather the subjective emotions and responses that objects and events arouse within a person. The artist accomplishes this aim through distortion, exaggeration, primitivism, and fantasy and through the vivid, jarring, violent, or dynamic application of formal elements. In a broader sense, Expressionism is one of the main currents of art in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, in its quality of highly subjective, personal, spontaneous, and self-expression are typical of a wide range of modern artists and art movements. Expressionism can also be seen as permanent tendency in Germanic and Nordic art from at least the European Middle Ages, particularly in times of social change or spiritual crisis. And in this sense, it forms the converse of rationalist and classicizing tendencies of Italy and later of France. More specifically, Expressionism as a distinct style or movement refers to a number of German artists, as well as Austrian, French, and Russian ones, who became active in the years before World War I and remained as throughout much of interwar.
Important arts and artists of Expressionism. Expressionism was an art movement and international trend that covered the visual arts, literature, music, theater, and architecture. At the turn of 20th century. Women in the Garden, French, Femmes au Jardin, is an 1866 oil painting by Claude Monet, who was 26 at that time. It is a big work painted on plein air due to the size of the canvas. Monet had to paint the upper part of the painting with the canvas lowered into the trench he had excavated in order to retain a single point of view. The Starry Night in 1889 by Vincent van Gogh. The painting Starry Night is one of the most well-known works at the world. It is also over the place. It's appear on coffee, mugs, t-shirt, towels, magnets, and other items. To be honest, I sometimes get the impression that the painting's fame was overtaken that its owner. Work of arts. The fact that Starry Night has such a universal application describe how timeless, universal its beauty it is.
Cubism was a revolutionary new approach to representing reality invented around 1907 to 1908 by artists Pablo Picasso and George Braque. They brought different views of subject, usually object or figures, together in the same picture, resulting in the painting that appear fragment and abstract. Cubism was one of the most influential styles of 20th century. It is generally agreed to have begun around 1907 with Picasso's celebrating painting De Mosaïques d'Avignon, which include elements of Cubist style. The name Cubism seems to have derived from the comment made by the critic Louis Braxas, who on seeing some George Braque's paintings exhibit in Paris in 1908, described them as reducing everything to the geometric outlines of cubes. Cubism opened up almost infinite new possibilities for the treatment of visual reality in art, and was a starting point for many later abstract styles including constructivism and neoplasticism. What inspired Cubist style? Cubism was partly influenced by the late work of artist Paul Cézanne, in which he can be seen to be painting things from slightly different points of view. Pablo Picasso was also inspired by African tribal masks, which are highly stylized or non-naturalist, but nevertheless present a vivid human image. A head, said Picasso, is a matter of eyes, nose, mouth, which can be distributed in any way you like. Types of Cubism: Analytical and Synthetic. Analytical Cubism, it is an art that looks more severe and are made up of interweaving of planes and lines in muted tones of black, gray, and oranges. While Synthetic Cubism is the later phase of Cubism, generally considered to the date from 1912 to 1914. It is characterized by simple shapes, brighter colors. Synthetic cubist work also more include collage real elements such as
Realism. What is realism? Realism in the arts is generally the attempt to represent subject matter truthfully without artificiality and avoiding speculative fiction and supernatural elements. The term is often used interchangeably with naturalism, even though these terms are not synonymous. What is the meaning of realism in art? In its specific sense, realism refers to mid-19th century artistic movement characterized by subjects painted from everyday life in a naturalistic manner. However, the term is also generally used to describe artwork painted in a realistic, almost photographic way. What is the main idea of realism art? So realism in the arts, the accurate, detailed, unembellished depiction of nature of a contemporary life. Realism rejects imaginative idealization in favor of a close observation of outward appearances. As such, realism in its broad sense has comprised many artistic currents in different civilizations. And lastly, what is the purpose of realism? So realism aims to interpret the actualities of any aspect of life free from subjective prejudice, idealism, or romantic color. It is an indirect opposition to concerns of the unusual, the basis of romanticism stresses the real over the fantastic.
Contour drawing. Contour drawing, in the French word contour, means outline. It's an artistic technique used in the field of art in which the artist sketches the style of a subject by drawing lines that result in drawing that is essentially an outline. So let's talk about the contour drawing used in Chinese painting or Chinese calligraphy. Chinese painting is closely related to Chinese calligraphy since lines are used in both of them. Lines are used to express feelings, thoughts, and concepts. The use of lines and strokes is one of the major characteristics of Chinese painting, which make it distinct from other traditions of paintings in the world. There are mainly four major categories in Chinese painting. 1 is landscape, 2 figure, 3 bird and flower, 4 genre. There are mainly two techniques in Chinese painting, which are 1 meticulous. It is usually refers to court style painting. The artists always pay meticulous attention to every detail in their works. Take a closer look in the fine details of the cut. 2 freehand. It is usually refers to ink and wash painting. Only black ink is used but in various concentrations.
Drawing freestyle is basically a freehand drawing. It is more of an organic sketching experience in which your mind takes over. Your fingers and pencil are merely the instruments it requires to get its thoughts onto paper. It's a technique to get all of your thoughts out of your head, sort of like a big brainstorm of wandering words, but with lines. It's a terrific method to get through a creative wrangling block. It's the artist's technique of getting around the stumbling block. A writer can overcome writer's block by just staring and getting thoughts down on paper. The origin of drawing. Drawing is thought to have been utilized as a specialized form of communication before the birth of the written language, as evidenced by the production of cave and rock paintings approximately 30,000 years ago. The art of the Upper Paleolithic, pictograms were drawings that portrayed things and abstract notions. These are some of the examples in cave paintings and drawing in the period of Upper Paleolithic. First is the panel of horses, the fighting of rhinoceros and 4 horses' heads. The 4 horses' heads in this panel most effectively attract the observer or the epigraph. The horses which are drawn over the other animals are likely to have been created by the same artist who blended charcoal with surface clay on the wall to create the design. Next is Altamira cave paintings. It is one of the 17 such caves unearthed along the mountains of North Spain near the Atlantic coast. On the main migratory route from the Middle East, which followed the North African coast, crossed the sea at Gibraltar and led through Spain into France. The third one is the Great Hall of the Bulls. The picture is asymmetrical, with an equal mix of opaque and translucent figures that provide the appearance of space and depth. The texture of the support is uneven, gritty, and hard, and the texture of the paint relies on the painting technique and the materials used to bond the paint. The color pigments used in Hall of Bulls are produced from earth tone colored powders. Furthermore, the colorful powder bonds with animal fat or spit to form paint.